Welcome back to CheatSheetPros, guys. It is Sunday, February 6, 2022, your source for sports betting, player props, and daily fantasy information. We're ramping up the videos in 2022, so make sure to hit subscribe down below. And if you'd like to try these cheat sheets for free on Thursdays, the link to our Facebook group is in the description. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do a full breakdown of the NBA slate from a sports betting perspective, including some of my favorite plays. If you watched the video yesterday, we said that we leaned on Memphis if John Morant played, Miami, Lakers, Milwaukee, and they all did really well. Our two favorite plays, Phoenix, they rolled. We had a first half bet minus 4.5, which was an easy win. And then we loved Oklahoma City. After I had posted that in the late afternoon, Dort was ruled out, which kind of killed us, but they still almost came in there. They were 2 possessions away from a cover. So favorite plays yesterday were 1-1. So as always, we're going to pull up the NBA cheat sheet. I've got this enlarged to 125%, so hopefully you can see it on your screen. And we have all our fun little tabs down here for all the different things that you may do, but the bet tab is the one we are going to focus on today. And then we click inside this home team box, and it gives you a drop-down arrow. And then we can scroll through the 8 games or so for today. So looking at the very first one, Boston over Orlando. Boston's one of our favorite plays that we had posted. Line opened at 8.5. We like that. You can see that our main model here has Boston minus 21. So they got them winning 121 to 100. So right here, if you don't look at anything else, this is the main differences you want to see off the Vegas line. So this has Boston by 13. So what that means is we have them winning by 21. The spread's 8.5. We have a difference of 13 points off the Vegas line. We're looking for differences of 6, 7, 8 points, and then those are the games that you want to earmark and kind of dig into. So the first thing is we like Boston just because, one, our model has a significant difference over what the actual Vegas spread is. And I will put in a word of caution on Sundays. You always want to watch the rest days for key players and make sure a couple people don't get ruled out. But Sundays are tricky, but we're posting this early, so just keep an eye on that. Orlando's 5-19 at home. They're 7-17 at home ATS, which is terrible. Boston isn't much better, 11-15 on the road, 13-12 ATS, so kind of up and down. But our last 10 power rankings, Boston's number 1. They've been on absolute fire. And then Orlando comes in at number 24. So I don't mind the spread. I don't mind the first half either. And we can see here, Boston has won 4 of the last 7 games by 9, 6, 30, 10, 53, and 29 points. The only game they lost was on the road to a red-hot Atlanta team by 16, and they bounced back with 4 straight wins. Orlando, on the other hand, they're kind of up and down. They've lost 2 of the last 3 by double-digit points, and then they squeaked out a win against Indy, which they probably should not have won. So we like Boston in this spot. I mean, defensively, look, they've kept, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the last 7 games, less than 93 points. So they've been doing really well on the defensive end of the ball. So we like Boston, either first half or minus 8.5. I just posted minus 8.5 for the game line. I think that's a no-brainer considering they have 4, almost 5 double-digit wins in the last 7 games. Moving on to game number 2, the Pelicans over Houston. So you can see here our main model, we've got Pelicans minus 11. Vegas has 4.5. This gives us a difference of 7. So that's a game we want to earmark and take a look into. So looking at the Pelicans' last 6 games, they're 2-6, but they've won 2 straight. And they've won the last 2 by a combined 18 points on the road. So those are all feathers in our cap that we do like. Now this 4-game losing streak, I want to dig into this. So they've lost to Cleveland, Boston, Denver, and Philadelphia. All pretty solid teams, but they've lost by 3, 10, 11, and 10 points. So the 10, 11 points is brutal, but they're not getting just completely smoked. They're staying in there and then kind of fading away at the end. So they've got 2 big wins on the road over Detroit and a good Denver team. So that is a plus for us. Going over here looking at Houston, they are just absolutely terrible. They've lost 4 of the last 5. They did manage somehow at home to beat Cleveland by 11. But then they got beat by 25 to the Spurs, 14 to Golden State, 15 to Portland, and then 30 to the Spurs again. So these red marks over here, they're double-digit losses. So you can just quickly glance at this and see the win-loss. You can look at the score. You can see the difference, and you can see the total points for each game, which I use a lot for totals, but you can see 4 of the last 5, they've lost by 14 or more points. So we're going Pelicans here and laying the 4.5. Moving on, Detroit, Minnesota. So Minnesota's laying 11.5. You can see our model here is favoring Minnesota by 21. This is a difference of 10, so this is a game we would want to earmark and look into. Detroit on the road is 4-22, 12-14 ATS. Minnesota's 15-10 at home, 13-12 ATS, so nothing really jumps out there except for Detroit is really bad straight up on the road. Last 10 power rankings, Minnesota comes in the 5th best team, and then Detroit slides to number 28, so they are not good. The 11.5 is tricky, especially for an NBA game, because when you look down here at Detroit's losses, they've lost by 9, 11, 10, 16, 10, 5, 6. So they've squeaked in under that 11.5 number. So the bet that I like here is taking a Minnesota first half. I believe it was -7 this morning when I bet it. And then that way, if by some chance Detroit gets out to a lead or they're up at halftime, you can come back with the second half hammer on Minnesota. Minnesota at home against a terrible team. They're either going to cover the first half or they're going to cover the second half line. So I like to give myself kind of a backdoor window to go after it if something goes awry. So looking at Detroit, they've lost, 7 of the last 8 games. And 1, 2, 3, 4 of those by double-digit points, almost 5 by double-digit points. The last 3 games they've lost by 9, 11, and 10 points. And all of these 3 games were at home, where they should be playing better, and now they go on their first game on the road to Minnesota. And then Minnesota, they're doing decent. They've been up and down. They lost to Phoenix and Golden State, which is fine. They're solid teams. They had a couple easy wins here against Brooklyn, Portland, and then the last 3 games, they've beat Utah, Denver, and they just played Detroit, so we should point that out. But the last 3 games, they've won by 11, 15, and 20 points, so they're just absolutely rolling right now. Look at the points they've scored, 128, 130, 126 over the last 3 games, so they're not having any problems. And then if you want to dig down into it, look at Detroit's, turnovers per game, rebounds, offensive efficiency, all that stuff. They're in the red. They're not good. And then you come over here, look at Minnesota. Last 3, they're first in points per game, first in offensive efficiency, second in field goal percentage. So they're doing really well. When they just played Detroit, it was on the road at Detroit. They beat them by 11, and now Minnesota gets them at home. So 11.5, I don't mind. They just did that. But like I said, I'm going to go first half and then come back with a second half play there, and hopefully they keep that winning streak alive. Philadelphia, Detroit, we did not have a play on this game when we had posted it. You can see here that our model has Chicago -5. They're catching 2, so that's the difference of 7 points. So that's a game you would want to take a look at. I don't like to get a ton of bets in. I like to get my favorite 3 to 5, and this one did not make the cut, but I would lean Chicago depending on the starting rosters, who's in, who's out. You can see here Philadelphia has lost 2 games in a row now. They lost to a horrible Washington team by 3 points at home, which was shocking, and I thought they would for sure come back against Dallas and win, and they lost by 9. Dallas is a good team, so I'm fine with that loss, but these 2 games are kind of eye-opening for me, so just keep an eye on that. Chicago, they've won 3 of the last 4 by 7, 11, and 14 points. Looking at the teams, Portland, Orlando, and Indy aren't really the best teams. Toronto is red hot right now, but they did lose that game by 7. So I'd lean Chicago here. I don't love it, but it is something to keep an eye on. Chicago's been really good at home. They're 19-6 at home where they are today versus 14-13 on the road. And then against the spread numbers, they're 17-8 at home and only 13-13 on the season. So they've got a good ATS trend number to take a look at. Last 10 power rankings, teams are almost identical, 14th and 16th. So lean Chicago here, but not in love with it, so to speak. Brooklyn, Denver. I lean Denver. Brooklyn's just been absolutely crap lately. I didn't really know how to pronounce that. I didn't want to cuss on YouTube again. So we're looking here. Our model has Denver by 4. Vegas is laying 5. So right here it leans 1 point towards Brooklyn. Again, that's not 6 or 7, so it's not one that we're going to go with. Brooklyn, I mean, look at this. They've lost, the last 7 games, and 5 of them have been by double digits. So, and I mean, by teams that aren't real good, like Denver was struggling. Minnesota is a good team. The Lakers have not been good. Denver's so-so. Golden State's decent. Phoenix is really good, but Sacramento's crap. And then Utah, they had just got back Donovan Mitchell, but they got beat by 23. So we actually had a Utah play on that game, so I'm very familiar with that one. But you come over here, now Denver's lost 3 straight by 8, 4, and 15 points to Minnesota, a good team, Utah, a struggling team, and then the Pelicans, who are not a great team. So that's kind of eye-opening. I don't love this either way. Both teams have been poor recently, so it's up in the air. Going over here to Atlanta and Dallas, this is one of my favorite games to see what happens today. So Dallas has been red hot. You can see here they did lose to Orlando somehow, and then they lost to OKC, but then they came back at home and beat Philly by 9. But then prior to that, they had a loss to Golden State by 38 points, and then they won by 13, 20, and 27. So they're kind of a roller coaster up and down. Last 10 power rankings, we got number 3 versus number 12. And then Atlanta, you can see they were red hot here. They had a game of 7 in a row. They won several by double digits. That's the highlighted green in this column. And then they lost to Toronto. I believe that was an overtime game. Or no, this one was an overtime game. So they lost to Toronto twice in the last 3 games. But then they turned around and beat a tough Phoenix team. So I would lean Atlanta here, probably money line. Take the plus money so you don't have to win it that 55% of the time to break even. You can get down in that 45% range and take some plus money. But again, it's not one of my favorite plays, but it is one that is interesting. One thing I would point out is Dallas is a monster underplay at home. Here on the over-under, you can see they're 33-18 for the under, and at home they're 20-6 for the under. So I didn't go back and dig in to see if that's when Porzingis is in or out, but just something to keep an eye on. And then flipping down, we got 2 more games we're going to try to go ahead and hit real quick. We got Milwaukee at LAC. I don't know how Milwaukee is only a 5-point fave. We've got LAC on our model by 2, but that's just because they've been scoring so many points. Milwaukee, they've been doing decent lately. What's that, 6-2? And then they've got 3 of the last 4 by double digits, 14, 15, and 29 points against Portland, Washington, and the Knicks. So not really stellar teams. Excuse me. And then the Clippers, they're 2-2 over the last 4 games with kind of mixed reviews. They had a 1-point game against the Lakers. Then they lost by 6 and 7 to Indy and Miami. And then they somehow beat Charlotte by 25. So very sporadic, up and down. Last 10 power rankings, we got 13 versus 10. In this one, I would lean Milwaukee, even though our model has Clippers by 7. Just Milwaukee's, they're a stud team. The only thing that would change it if Giannis, however you say his name, was going to sit. But with 3 of these last 4 games by easily double-digit points, I'm going to lay that there. Milwaukee's been red hot. But again, it didn't make one of my top plays. And the very last game, Indy-Cleveland, nothing exciting here. We've got last 10 power rankings, number 25 versus number 19. Cleveland, they've been kind of up and down, but, they've been decent lately. They did beat a tough Charlotte team by 1, but then they lost to an absolute horrible Houston team by 11. I don't know how that happened. But then they beat a decent Pelican team by 3, and then they lost by 10 to a horrible Detroit team. So their 2 losses are against dog shit teams. But then they beat Charlotte, they beat the Pelicans, they beat Milwaukee, and then Knicks, OKC, kind of so-so. So they're a little bit all over the map. Indy, you can see here, they've lost 6 of the last 8 games. They did beat the Clippers, and they beat OKC, big whoop. But then they lost to Chicago by 7. That's fine. Chicago's a good team. Orlando's not very good. They lost that game. Dallas absolutely crushed them by 27. Charlotte crushed them by 32. Pelicans by 4. And Phoenix by 10. So I would lean Cleveland here, laying the points. Indy's been terrible on the road. They've got a huge home road split. Well, it's actually gotten even worse. So over here you can see they're 13-15 at home, which they used to be above 500. And then on the road, they're 6-20. And then just the opposite for Cleveland. They're 16-12 on the road, but 16-9 at home. So I would lean Cleveland here. They're 15-9 ATS at home, and they're decent on the year at 31-19. Indy's slightly upside down at 12-13 ATS on the road, but I would lean the points here. There's just a high probability that Indy gets blown out on the road. But again, it didn't make one of my favorite plays, but that's what I got for today. So just to recap, my favorite plays are Minnesota -7 first half, Boston laying the 8.5, Pelicans minus 4.5, and then I like the over in the Minnesota game. Let me pull that one up real quick. I didn't go over any totals on this, and that's one I brought up. So you can see here, Minnesota's recent games, look at this. 245, 245, 232, 258, 239, low game, 261, 256. These two teams just played, and it was 245 total points. So the over of 229.5 seems kind of high, but since they just did it, I don't mind going back after it. And Minnesota's been red hot right now. So that's what I got, guys. Good luck.